Good morning, Dan and Amy. The Wall Street Journal editorial this morning, Hope Without Change. That's how they characterized Hillary's acceptance speech last night, and I think that's fair. She tried to strike an optimistic tone, but she's an extension of the policy choices of the last 8 years against the backdrop of 70% of the country thinking the country is on the wrong track. So it's a difficult sales job she has. So instead of focusing on her policy agenda and an Obama third term, she's focusing on Donald Trump and trying to disqualify him from office. And she did it in pockets throughout her speech. For example,
well, we heard Donald Trump's answer last week at his convention. He wants to divide us from the rest of the world and from each other. He's betting that the perils of today's world will blind us to its unlimited promise. He's taken the Republican Party a long way, from morning in America to midnight in America.
And Trump tweeted, among other tweets, crooked
Yes.
Hillary Clinton made up facts about me and forgot, quote unquote, to mention the many problems of our country in her very average scream. And it was an average scream. It was a pedestrian scream.
He was listening, and her main objective, I think, last night was obviously she slammed Trump every chance she could, but she was trying to reintroduce herself to the public to remind people or tell them for the first time her life story, her trials and tribulation, and what brought her to this historic point last night where she became the first female nominee in our history.
There wasn't a lot that was offered by Hillary or most of the other speakers that was surprising. There was a moment, though, last night that was a bit surprising to me, and I think it was perhaps the most absurd moment of the last 4 days, and that's saying something. And unfortunately, because even though he's a liberal, sometimes he stumbles upon a point or two. I think he's generally a thoughtful guy, but he wasn't last night. And the gentleman I'm referring to is Hall of Fame basketball player Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, who fashions himself a bit of a social commentator. And he came out and said this.
Hello, everyone. I'm Michael Jordan, and I'm here with Hillary. I said that because I know that Donald Trump couldn't tell the difference.
Because Donald Trump believes all black people look alike because Donald Trump's a racist. That's obviously what Jabbar is insinuating. And Kareem Abdul-Jabbar hasn't been funny since he was Captain Murdoch in Airplane. Certainly wasn't funny last night. So we got the tweet response. Let's get an audio response. So we're happy to be joined by Katrina Pierson, the national campaign spokesperson for the Donald Trump for President campaign. Katrina, thanks for joining us again. Appreciate it.
Good morning. Great to be with you, Dan and Amy.
So the reaction to the approach by Hillary Clinton and the Democrats over the last 4 days to essentially argue Donald Trump is unqualified and some of the to be president, and some of the statements he has made have disqualified him from consideration.
Well, I think, this is really the only line of attack that they have. They can't necessarily talk about Hillary's failed record. But it was interesting. There was kind of a little political bipolarness going on, simply because you would have some individuals mention the founders, they would mention the Constitution, but leave out the fact that we just had Barack Obama, who was struck down by the United States Supreme Court. And I think the most telling aspect of the last 4 nights was the simple fact that there's this idea that somehow America is about doing everything together, which tells you they know nothing about the founders of the Constitution, because we are people who are individuals and people who make choices in their lives, can be and do whatever they want. And this concept that Hillary Clinton herself spoke of about the founders fleeing a king, they were fleeing a government because the king was controlling everything in every aspect of their lives. And that's exactly what the Democrats stand for.
Well, Donald Trump yesterday, I thought he shot himself in the foot when he gets up there in Davenport, Iowa, and says that he wants to hit DNC speakers who made disparaging remarks about him. Quote, saying, I want to hit a couple of those speakers so hard. And that's really not presidential, is it, Katrina?
When he says hit, he means fight back, speak against. And that's typical of Donald Trump. He's always said he will defend himself. If you come after me, I'm going to come after you. If you hit me, I'm going to hit you 10 times harder. That's just normal Donald Trump. And that's true. I mean, you had a lot of individuals, as Dan had mentioned, essentially trying to paint Donald Trump as a racist, taking a page right off of the PowerPoint of the DNC WikiLeaks, when in fact, Donald Trump has been a very highly public figure for 3 to 4 decades now, and all of the sudden, he's a racist. And so that is taken personally, but it's not something that we didn't expect from the Democrats. But to see people who actually know Donald Trump go out there and try to paint him as a racist, is very disconcerting.
One of the themes throughout the last 4 days is, in terms of the focus on Trump, was Trump said our military is a disaster and our military is great. It's not a disaster. You had General John Allen and a number of veterans standing with him yesterday to essentially push back against Trump, make a strong endorsement of Hillary from the military perspective. And I think Trump is sometimes imprecise with language. I think that's fairly clear, and it's a little bit frustrating from my perspective. But it's also clear, isn't it, that Trump, when he says the military is a disaster, he's not denigrating the military. He's suggesting we aren't treating the military like we should, either on the investment side or on the care for veterans after their days of service side. That's kind of the point, and they're purposely misrepresenting it.
Oh, absolutely. And that's what they do. Mr. Trump will be at a rally or at a press conference speaking on these very issues, and he will lay out the problem, which is the simple fact that our military has been gutted. Our troops who are stationed elsewhere they're demoralized because the readiness, we're at an all-time low. You can't even get the appropriate equipment because it takes 3-6 months, even a year sometimes, to get our troops what they need. And by that time, the equipment's outdated or obsolete. That is a problem with the military, and that's the problem that Mr. Trump lays out. That's why he says it's a disaster, because you can't have a government that puts more time and attention and resources towards illegal aliens in this country when we have soldiers who are abroad putting their lives on the line who can't even get the appropriate equipment that they need to stay safe.
Katrina, what was your reaction to the father of the deceased Muslim soldier? His name was Khan. He gave a powerful speech at the DNC last night, preaching equality and talking to Donald Trump about, here's the Constitution. I want you to have a copy of it. Do you know what Donald Trump's reaction was? Were you with him, or do you have any response to that?
Well, I think everyone sympathizes with any parent who's lost any child for any reason. But we also have to recognize that with 300 million people in this country, it's the president of the United States' job to protect our national security. And we can't sacrifice that responsibility because of people who feel get their feelings hurt behind a policy that is designed to do just that, which is to keep Americans safe. And I didn't even see that live, but I did see it on the news today. And it's unfortunate that tragedy is being used essentially to tell Americans, again, trying to paint Americans as racist or bigoted because they want to protect themselves from terrorism. I mean, this is a subject that the Democrats didn't even touch. They didn't talk about ISIS or how it came about or effective measures to stop it because, I'm sorry, 15 years of this war with the Middle East, and now they're still not communicating. They still don't have intelligence. The allies still aren't helping. We cannot continue more of the same. So it's truly unfortunate, but it also does highlight this idea that the Democrats are the ones who want to divide because Mr. Trump's policies are solely to protect American citizens, including Muslims.
We're talking to Katrina Pierson, national spokesperson for the Donald Trump campaign. And so, Katrina, on Monday morning, when most of what has been said and presented over the last couple of weeks dissipates into the ether, we're likely to find ourselves with a race between Trump and Hillary that is in a dead heat. And it seems clear from the last 4 days that the focus of the Democrats is to try and make this a referendum on Donald Trump. What is Donald Trump's market position going to be in the closing sprint with the first debate about 7 weeks away in terms of how he is going to present the choice to the American people and then rinse and repeat so that it takes hold over that time period?
You know what, Dan? It's all going to be about contrast from here on out. There isn't a person in the country who actually believes Hillary Clinton is not going to push through the Trans-Pacific Partnership or shut down the Wall Street corruption or reform education. Everything that she talked about, no one believes she's going to even lift a finger to do it. And so it's really going to be about what a Trump administration would look like. All of his policies, from education reform to immigration reform to foreign policy reform and really strong, secure border measures so that we can keep our country safe. Because if we don't have a border, we don't have a country. I think it's going to be a clear contrast on those policies. You can continue the Obama legacy and pretend that everything's okay, or you can wake up every morning just like we did today and see another police officer shooting. All
right. She is Katrina Pierson, national spokesperson for the Trump campaign. Katrina, thanks as always for joining us. Appreciate it.
Anytime. Thank you.
And she joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.